The best song of all time is mostly forgotten today. Ask 20 people what the greatest music is, and you'll likely receive 20 different replies. A wonderful music moves you personally, which is more essential than what others think. We used Rolling Stone's 500 finest songs of all times and Ranker's the best song of all time to compile a list of the finest songs. Gasolina, Daddy Yankee. Eka mija como te gusta la gasolina. The Puerto Rican rapper devised a great and fun phrase that wormed its way into the ears of viewers. It was a playful remark aimed at young women looking for the slickest rides to a party. It evolved into a ubiquitous chant, sparking worldwide interest in reggaeton. Daddy Yankee delivered his lyrics with such force that the music seemed like it was about to explode. Deep River, Mountain High, Ike and Tina Turner. Many people consider producer Phil Spector's 1966 release of Deep River, Mountain High by Ike and Tina Turner to be his best work. It was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999 and is ranked number 33 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. Putting the song together was a remarkable experience for Tina Turner. Spector had her perform it over and again for many hours until he achieved the perfect voice. "I must have sung that 500,000 times," Turner said to Rolling Stone. "I was saturated with perspiration. To sing, I had to remove my shirt and stand in my bra." Help, the Beatles. In an interview with Playboy in 1980, John Lennon said that the song Help, released as a single in July 1965 at the height of Beatlemania, had hidden depths that even he was unaware of when he composed it. "Most people think it's just a fast rock and roll song," he said. "I was subconsciously pleading for help. I didn't recognize that at the time. I simply created the song since it was requested for the film." Later, he told the Rolling Stone that he didn't like the recording because we did it too fast to try and be commercial. People Get Ready, The Impressions. The Impressions' best-known single is People Get Ready. It was written by Curtis Mayfield and reached number 3 on the Billboard R&B chart. It became an unofficial anthem for the civil rights movement and was rated one of Mojo magazine's top 10 finest songs of all time. "That was taken from my church or from the upbringing message from the church," Mayfield remarked of the song. "There's no hiding place on Hop and Board and similar pictures. When I wrote that song, I must have been in a deep state of religious inspiration." In My Life, the Beatles. If John Lennon had his way, In My Life, the Beatles' 1965 single from the album Rubber Soul, would have been on every best-of list, at least from the band's back catalog. "It was my first real major piece of work," Lennon said, adding that up until then it had all been glib and throwaway. According to Lennon's friend and biographer Peter Shotton, the lyrics, "Some friends are dead and some are living, in my life I love them all," was a reference to both Stuart Sutcliffe, who died in 1962, and Shotton himself. Let It Be, the Beatles. The most turbulent times sometimes produce the most creative people, and this was definitely true for Paul McCartney in 1968. The Beatles were disintegrating, but McCartney sought solace in a dream in which his late mother, Mary, offered him some counsel. This inspired the opening lyric of Let It Be. "When I'm in trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, let it be," was the tune of the Beatles' last studio album released in March 1970, and it was the band's final single before their breakup was publicized to the press. The Times They Are A-Changin', Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's 1964 album title tune, The Times They Are A-Changin', became a hymn for change. When it was published in the United Kingdom in 1965, it reached number 9 on the singles chart. However, it failed to chart at all in the United States. Nonetheless, it's one of Dylan's most well-known and influential songs, having been covered by a slew of artists such as Nina Simone, Simon & Garfunkel, the Beach Boys, and Bruce Springsteen. Dylan's connection with this song looks to be more complex. It was a setlist staple from '65 until 2009 when he discontinued it. Behind Blue Eyes, The Who. Behind Blue Eyes, recorded in 1971, was purportedly inspired by Pete Townsend being seduced by a groupie the previous year during a Who performance in Denver. Instead of giving in to temptation, Townsend allegedly returned to his hotel room alone and penned a prayer that began, "When my fist clenches, crack it open." These phrases were eventually used as lyrics in the song Behind Blue Eyes. The song was included on the band's 5th album, Who's Next, and has been recorded by a number of musicians, most notably Limp Bizkit in 2003. Hound Dog, Elvis Presley. Hound Dog was a success for R&B singer Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton before Elvis Presley recorded it, but Presley's version is ranked 19th on the Rolling Stone Top 500. After seeing Freddie Bell and the Bellboys play it in Las Vegas, Presley added it to his set list in '56. Later that year, Presley famously serenaded a basset hound, wearing a top hat, on TV's Steve Allen Show. "It was the most ridiculous appearance I ever did," Presley later said, "and I regret ever doing it." However, Hound Dog was both his best-selling single and one of the best-selling singles of all time. Here Comes the Sun, The Beatles. The song Here Comes the Sun is on the Beatles' 1969 album Abbey Road. Most Beatles songs were written by Paul McCartney and/or John Lennon, but this one was entirely composed by George Harrison, and the band's lead guitarist's rising influence of Indian classical music is obvious. Harrison allegedly penned Here Comes the Sun at the house of his buddy Eric Clapton, where he had gone to escape a meeting at the band's Apple Corps organization. It's a solid favorite among Beatles fans, and it is the most streamed of all their songs in the United Kingdom as of January 2020. What a Wonderful World, Louis Armstrong. What a Wonderful World is ranked number 15 on the Ranker list of the finest songs, composed by Bob Thiele as George Douglas and George David Weiss, and originally recorded by Louis Armstrong. It topped the pop chart in the United Kingdom in 1967, but only reached number 32 in the United States, despite being inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. Eva Cassidy and Katie Melua, the Flaming Lips, Tony Bennett, who was apparently given the song before Armstrong and turned it down, Katie Lang, Joey Ramone, and Nick Cave and Shady McGowan are among the many who have covered it. A Day in the Life, The Beatles. A Day in the Life, one of the final authentic Lennon-McCartney collaborations, and largely regarded as one of the Beatles' best successes, was the dramatic end to the 1967 album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Many artists, including Jeff Beck, Barry Gibb, The Fall, and Fish, have covered the song, and Paul McCartney has included it in his live performances since 2008. Rolling Stone named it number 1 on their list of the Beatles' best songs in 2011, while Acclaimed Music ranks it as the 3rd most famous song in popular music history. All Along the Watchtower, The Jimi Hendrix Experience. All Along the Watchtower was written by Bob Dylan, but the Jimi Hendrix Experience's rendition is ranked as the 4th greatest song of all time by the Ranker community. The song, initially featured on Dylan's 1967 album John Wesley Harding, then Hendrix covered it 6 months later on his album Electric Ladyland. Hendrix had a top 20 success with it in 1968, and that version is ranked 47th on Rolling Stone's list of the best songs of all time. Many other artists have covered the song, including Neil Young, U2, and Eddie Vedder. I Wanna Hold Your Hand, The Beatles. I Wanna Hold Your Hand, another of the Beatles' best song selections, is ranked 6th on Ranker and 16th on Rolling Stone. It was the group's first number 1 success in the United States and spent 21 weeks in the top 50 in the United Kingdom. John Lennon said in 1980 that the song was composed eyeball to eyeball with McCartney. I remember when we finally got the chord that made the song, he said, "We were at Jane Asher's house, downstairs in the cellar, both playing the piano, and we were like, oh, you got that something." And Paul strikes his chord, and I turned to him saying, "That's it, do it again," I said. We used to write just like that back then, both playing into one another's noses. Yesterday, The Beatles. The Ranker community ranked the Beatles' most renowned ballad 3rd, while Rolling Stone ranked it 13th. It was also chosen the finest song of the 20th century in a BBC Radio 2 poll of music professionals and listeners in 1999. Yesterday contains just one of the Beatles, McCartney singing over a string quartet. It was hailed by McCartney as one of the most instinctive songs I've ever written. The tune appeared to him in a dream when he was staying at the home of his then-girlfriend, Jane Asher. However, the band was initially a little embarrassed about recording a song so far removed from their rock and roll roots. Hey Jude, The Beatles. According to thousands of Ranker voters, it is the finest song of all time, and it ranks 8th on the Rolling Stone list. Hey Jude, the Beatles' debut record released on the Apple label, was a number 1 smash in several countries and the best-selling single of 1968 in the United Kingdom, United States, Australia, and Canada. The song's message is heartfelt and extremely personal. McCartney composed it on his way to see John Lennon's soon-to-be ex-wife Cynthia and their son Julian. According to McCartney, the first lyrics are a hopeful message for Julian. "Come on, man, your parents divorced. I know you're upset, but you'll be okay." He eventually changed it from Jules to Jude, a name inspired by Jude from the song. Imagine, John Lennon. John Lennon's Imagine is deserving of our top place, having been voted second by the Ranker community and third by Rolling Stone. It was Lennon's best-selling solo hit when it was released in the United States in October 1971 and then in the United Kingdom in October 1975. Imagine was the name of the 100 most performed songs of the 20th century by BMI. It's been covered by Madonna, Stevie Wonder, Lady Gaga, Elton John, and many others, and has preceded the New Year's Eve Times Square ball drop in New York City since 2005. And it's ranked number 30 on the Recording Industry Association of America's list of the 365 songs of the century. Shortly before his death, Lennon stated that much of the song's content and lyrics were written by his wife at the time, Yoko Ono, and she was given a co-writing credit in 2017.